Welcome everybody. Out to sea, day 25 with no alcohol. Got my Suboxone dose down to 2.5 milligrams a day. It's a pretty big deal. You know, my body's talking to me, it's feeling it. I know it's coming to the time to put this away, to put it down. You know, some of the videos I've been making in regards to this process, talking about how it's painful and it's depressing. I don't want to make it out like I'm whining or complaining. That's just the reality of the process I'm going through. And that being said, it's good to remember that, especially in early sobriety, kind of like a yo-yo, just all over the place. Feelings shift greatly day to day, whether there's a drug problem or not. It tends to be a lot more magnified, kind of the range of emotions just going all over the place. Early sobriety, you're unstable. You're just mentally unstable. One day is horrible, the next day is great. And after a while, things start to kind of stabilize and normalize. And I've found in the past when I've been sober, it takes a little bit of getting used to things just being stable and normal. You're used to just chaos and turmoil and being all over the place. The instability gets to be predictable. That's the thing about drug addiction, is it's predictable. If I don't have this, I'm sick. If I have it, I'm good and functional. You can kind of distill all of your problems down into just a drug problem. And it's predictable. And at some point, there gets to be some comfort in that predictability. The world has changed so much, man. I mean, I barely even recognize it. 2023? Where are we? What is going on? I wish I was capable of just putting faith in Christianity, because I think it would make life so much easier. I have this whole storyline, this whole narrative. This is where we came from. This is where we're going. My God, there must be so much peace in that. There's no more mystery of this physical plane, this spiritual plane, whatever the hell we are. Nobody knows what's happening. It's all a grand mystery. And that's why I was so enthralled with the psychedelics. I felt that it was tugging at the very thread of that mystery. And I think it probably is. Why do you take psychedelics and think you've come into contact with God? Why do you think that you've died and been reborn? Why does the cosmos all turn into one and your ego collapse? What is that? I mean, psychedelia has bled into mainstream culture. Psychedelic art is in mainstream advertising. Ayahuasca and DMT and LSD, magic psilocybin mushrooms are mainstream now. I think these compounds are mutating us. I think that's what the psychedelics are doing. They're mutating us on a mental and spiritual level. It's questionable whether or not that's a good thing. It depends on who you're going to talk with. So much time has gone by, so much has changed. It's just astounding. When I was living in Southern California, I heard someone describe living in Southern California as spiritually hostile. And I know exactly what is meant by that. You're walking by tent encampments with people in psychiatric crisis, strung out on the hardest drugs imaginable, fentanyl and meth, and you gotta learn to just turn a blind eye to it. There's nothing I can do about this. Just ignore it. Just keep going. I have my own life, my own stress, my own insanity. I can't look at this. It reminds me a little bit too much of myself. When I think about doing this home Suboxone Detox, this is a good idea. I'm here with my wife and have a small child. I'm not gonna put him through me being just sick as hell. That's partially why this has been put off for so long. I just don't have the time. And that's the reality for most people that end up on synthetic maintenance opiates or opiates in general. You have a life, you have to go to work, you have people relying on you. You can't just stop. That's the thing about the opioids. It gets to a point to where they possess you so fully on a mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual level, you can't function without them. And when people are relying on you, take a month off, it's not the easiest thing to do. You got to plan it out. And there have been times when I've done home detoxes with Suboxone that I've ended up in the ER through essentially anxiety and panic attacks. Now, every time I've had a bad reaction from home Suboxone detoxes, it's when I was self-medicating with benzodiazepines, Klonopin, Xanax, Valium, whatever I can get my hands on, with the thought that these benzodiazepines are gonna relieve the anxiety, tone it down so it's more manageable, right? Well, the Suboxone detox is a marathon. It's a long-term thing. You gotta get through the first couple weeks of the acute physical withdrawal. Then you feel a little bit better, but then that month hits, bam. It's like you got a black cloud over you and it doesn't leave for quite some time. There's months and months of post-acute withdrawal. And quite honestly, that can be much more difficult than the initial physical withdrawal. With the initial physical, you're so physically distraught and ill that you can't really focus on anything else. All you can focus on is just getting through the sickness. But then, once you get through that, which is at least 2 weeks of absolute hell, you're still gonna have physical symptoms for months, but it's the first couple weeks I've found that are horrific. You don't sleep, you're bound to have a mental breakdown, it's no joke. You get through that, and there's maybe a moment of light at the end of the tunnel. So usually, I'd run out of benzos within the first 8 days. And generally, day 8 is the worst with Suboxone withdrawal. You don't really feel much for the first few days because the half-life is so long in the buprenorphine. I've found that it's day 3 to 9 or 10 that's absolute hell. Usually start getting a little bit better come day 13, 14. So there's been a couple times that I tried to detox at home with, I just acquired some benzos, however I managed to get them. And I'll take them. Sometimes I'll even use them responsibly, and run out day 8, 9, 10. And so then I'm not only in the worst part of Suboxone withdrawal, now I'm also in a benzo hangover and pissed I don't have any more benzos. I'm just making it harder on myself. The benzos do not help. They do not help. So I had a successful Suboxone detox. This was back in, 2016. I went and did a 10-day silent Vipassana meditation at a Vipassana center 2 hours south of Seattle. 50-acre piece of land. You have a big meditation hall, men on the left, women on the right, and you have a couple assistant meditation teachers, a man and a woman who are up front, and if you have any questions, they're there. For the most part, your requirement is to shut your mouth and learn how to sit and watch your breath and your thoughts. Prior to doing this 10-day silent meditation, the only experience I had with meditation was one 45-minute sit, and it's difficult. I show up to my first 10-day silent Vipassana, and I was 3 days into a Suboxone detox. I had been prescribed Suboxone from a physician for a few months leading up to this. This was after I had fallen apart in the Ibogaine world. My last Ibogaine job was the Crossroads Clinic. That was 2012 in Mexico. After having some clients die down there, and I felt it was needless, unnecessary deaths, I took on some survivor's guilt. Working in Ibogaine clinics is not easy. Working in any type of detox or treatment capacity is not easy. And if you're someone who has dealt with addiction, which a lot of people working in the addiction industry have dealt with addiction, that's why they're passionate about doing the work, you so have to be taking care of yourself and taking time for yourself. I stopped doing that. Nobody taught me how to take time and care for myself when I was actively working with other addicts. I just threw everything I had into working with others and did not understand that I needed substantial self-care. I should have been in therapy. I should have had a whole army of support around me if I was going to be continuing to support all these other people. That's just not how it played out. And I ended up relapsing, and it got really, really bad because I was Mr. Sober. I was the guy in the Ibogaine world that had made it, right? I was one of the guys who had made it. People looked up to me. And then I crumbled again. And I couldn't even believe it myself. And things got worse than they'd ever gotten. My heroin habit was bigger than it had ever been. I'm smoking meth. The meth does substantial damage. I was never a stimulant guy, but over the past decade, this ice has been so prevalent with all the heroin and the fentanyl. It hasn't just been an opiate epidemic. There's meth washing through with all of it. This stuff does substantial brain damage, irreparable, I think. It just takes time. It takes a lot of time. Healing addiction takes time. And that's what nobody wants to hear. We all want a quick fix. I didn't sleep for the first 8 days when I was detoxing from Suboxone at this 10-day Vipassana. I had a roommate, so I did the best I could to not flop around too much in the middle of the night, not take too many showers. I was meditating all day, sitting cross-legged, pouring sweat, just pouring sweat, and I forgot my deodorant stick too, so I stank. I was worried about other people smelling me. Just pouring sweat when you're detoxing from the Suboxone, so uncomfortable. I managed to muscle through this 10-day silent meditation. People talk about having psychedelic type visions when you get deep into the meditation. I had something happen. I think it was a combination of the meditation, the detox, the sleep deprivation. I was sitting meditating in this big communal hall with everybody, and you definitely drew strength from the group. I don't think I would have been capable of just meditating by myself. There was a camaraderie of 100 people in a room suffering with you. It wasn't uncommon for other people to break down crying. You hear other people crying, other people struggling. So you draw strength from the camaraderie of the common suffering. Because that's what we all share, right? Suffering. We share love and we share suffering. That's the common trait in all of us. We all suffer. And there certainly does seem to be something to the Eastern wisdom of life is suffering, because it's the only constant I've found in this life. That's for sure. It's the only thing that doesn't change and doesn't go away is the suffering. And deep down within that suffering is love, right? That's the paradox. What do I know? I'm just a struggling drug addict, right? It's funny, I've always had these symbols with these big events in my life. When I went and did Ibogaine and got off of Suboxone, that was March 17th of 2008. My birthday is March 23rd. I turned 28 when I went through my Suboxone exorcism in Mexico and nearly died. Got the Suboxone out of me and moved forward with my life for quite a while. Post Suboxone, I wasn't fully sober. I was Ibogaine sober. I was still eating Xanax and drinking and smoking weed and eating Molly and 2CB and MDMA and whatever else. You know, just as long as there's no opiates, I'm good, right? I had a couple people comment on that post Ibogaine. So you're just doing every other drug but opiates? Checks out, bro. Yeah, exactly. I like drugs. And the point I wanted to make is that I made it through a Suboxone Detox with nothing but silence. I went to a 10-day silent Vipassana meditation sit, and I made it through it. I got sidetracked. I had a vision on the 8th day of a giant stone wheel. It was like a giant gear, and I can hear it grinding. It was loud and massive. And it had all of these symbols etched into it. And that was it. You know, I don't know what it meant. I don't know what it was. But I saw a massive, ancient stone grinding away, covered in symbols. And you know, a symbol they have on the website for the Vipassana is a spinning wagon wheel. So I'm pumping myself up. If I was able to make it through a 10-day silent Vipassana, I'm going to be able to do this, and I'm going to be able to do it with grace and peace without ending up in the ER. I'm going to continue using the cannabis until I'm ready to let that go. Much love, everybody. We're going to do this. It's coming up. I'm scared. I'm doing it. Peace.